What's up, everybody? Welcome to the PickSix podcast, CBS Sports Daily NFL podcast. I'm Will Brinson. I'm your host. It is Friday, July 9th. And man, we are excited. We have a Superfriends Divisional Power Rankings episode, but there's more important news than there's just that going on. That's right. Big breaking news to start the show. This isn't even leaked out there yet. The PickSix podcast is now officially sponsored by Bud Light. Yes! Yes! Yay! Cue it up, baby. Drink those cold beers. We are now proudly Bud Light, guys. We could not be more excited. Grab a Bud Light with us all summer long and start counting down to tailgate season. Head to budlight.com/delivery to get yours. Again, go to budlight.com/delivery to get yours. As you can see, you're watching on YouTube, which you can do at youtube.com/PickSix. John Breech is pointing towards the Bud Light logo. There's two Bud Lights clinking, with a little splash of ice cold domestic beer going up in the air. I mean, it's summertime. There's nothing better than an American delicious light beer, and that is Bud Light. I'll be honest, like, this is not part of the read. I think this is the happiest day of my life. This is all I want for a podcast.
You guys don't know this, but there's a Budweiser factory distributor brewery literally a quarter mile from my house.
And I'm with the PickSix podcast.
You guys don't know this, but I actually had Bud Light Seltzer 4th of July weekend. I was randomly walking in the grocery store, and literally I will drink watermelon flavored anything. Fun fact about me, literally my favorite flavor. And I saw a box of Bud Light Seltzer. I think it was a remix box, and they had a watermelon flavored one, grabbed it, and there were also 3 other flavors in there that I can't name because I only drank the watermelon ones. They were delicious.
Well, as you can see over my right shoulder, these delicious Bud Lights that I stalked down in our pool beer toss at the Fat Club here in
the Fat Club.
Fat Club, not Fat Club.
Oh, I like the Fat Club better.
I did not join a club called the Fat Club that does beer toss. Although I guess it could actually make sense. Anyway, no, I mean, in all seriousness,
pretty high.
We've been doing this podcast for a long time, Ryan and John and Bleep. And we're sponsored by a beer. That's all I really wanted in life, was to have my podcast.
There's no better marriage between sponsor and host than beer for Brinson.
It makes too much sense. And once we get to maybe next week's episodes, is it too early to crack a beer? Probably too early.
No, it's 4:00 somewhere. Oh, that's something else. It's
and no one knows what time it is when we're recording this. For all they know, it's 8:30 p.m. at night.
That's true. Now I'm probably gonna be hammered off this because I've been fasting for like 7 years. That's fine.
Oh, there's the humble brag. You got it in. People who talk about Brinson humble brag.
Brinson claims to be fasting. Me and Ryan don't believe it at all.
That is so good.
There's a 0% chance you're fasting.
Malty hops. Oh.
So you went from the
clean, delicious Bud Light.
You went from the Fat Club to the Fast Club. Now you're back to the Fat Club.
Anyway, in the feed, make sure and check out top 10 teams of the Super Bowl era. That's myself and Brian Diardo breaking them down. It's actually a really good talk, and Ryan, you will love and be surprised by the list. I'll tell you that much.
Did the 2020 Bengals happen to make that list?
You have to win a Super Bowl, Ryan. Dunk it on yourself.
There it is.
He may have pulled a hamstring or a muscle, and there is complete elation.
Well, if you have to win a Super Bowl, I guess that means there's not a single Bengals team on the list.
That is correct, right?
Oh!
I only saw one Steelers team on the list, which means the other 4 were trash. Other 5? How many have they won?
Where would you say the
won 5 or 6? 6. They won 6, so the other 5 are trash. Press the dunk button. I dunked on them.
There's only one team from each franchise.
No, that wasn't a rule. That was not a rule. He could have put in all 6 Steelers teams if they were good enough. They were not.
I don't think Ryan knows because I don't think he's seen the list. But if you've seen the list, then you know, Breech. Where were that Steelers team that you were talking about? Where'd they rank?
He had the night. Well, you know what? Actually, Wilson, who do you think was the best Super Bowl winning Steelers team? Why don't we ask him that?
Ooh.
I don't remember the 70s teams that well, so I wouldn't be able to answer that question. So I just know like the Cowher, Tomlin, those are the teams I know really well.
What? He just doesn't want to throw Diardo under the bus here. I can see what's going on.
No, I don't mind. Go ahead, tell me.
Well, so who do you think was the best Steelers Super Bowl team? Just give me a year. Super Bowl winning.
I'll go the year they beat the Rams. How about that?
I think that was Super Bowl. It's right when the Super Bowl 14, I think.
Yeah, you know.
Starter's pick was the 1978 Steelers.
And Ryan just named the 1979 Steelers.
So
Oh, that's close.
So close.
Roster.
But
All right, if I said over under 2.5,
ooh, that's
where does Steelers rank?
As far as the greatest Super Bowl winning teams of all time, where would you put the 1978 Steelers?
2.5 is the over under.
Over under 2.5.
I'll go over like 2.5 to 3, 4, 5 that direction.
Okay, what if I said over under half?
Oh, well then I guess I have to go.
He put him number one. He put the 78
say,
Steelers number one over the 72 Dolphins, and actually made a very compelling case as to why it would be.
The 72 Dolphins didn't score a lot of points, if I recall correctly.
They had like one of the worst strength of schedules of all time.
And the final, that was the Garo Upremian game. Is that right, Breech?
That was yes. They won 14-7, or was that the next year?
I think that was that year, 14-7.
And they barely beat Washington in the final.
That's right. Even though Garo Breech threw the ball backwards.
And you start to look at him and you're like, yeah, this team's not that dominant. Wilson chugging a
Bud Light.
Yeah. Anywho, that's in the feed. We'll have a mailbag coming up Monday. There'll be lots of Bud Light talk on that as well, because we're sponsored by Bud Light. Don't know if we mentioned that. But let's get to the divisional power rankings. I assume this is Breech's list.
It is.
Okay,
it is.
Cool. So we're going off your list, and you told me and Ryan off air and before Debo logged on that you were purposely trolling Debo with this list. So let's start. Who's at number 8?
Well, obviously, since we're trolling Debo, this is the worst division in the NFL going into 2021. It is none other than the NFC East.
Oh! Would you say, if you were picking the worst team in the worst division in football, who would you pick this?
I mean, it would have to be, let's continue the theme of trolling Debo. It is the Philadelphia Eagles.
Oh!
So Breech is the king of analogies. What is this like? This is like the person that's terrible at one thing, telling someone else who he thinks is really terrible at something that he's bad at it. So what's that analogy? How do you work that analogy, Breech?
It'd be like Hugh Jackson showing up at Cincinnati and telling Zach Taylor that he's bad at his job.
Yeah, that's exactly.
And what's that? I'm told my dunk buttons are being taken away.
Right. That's like Hugh,
Bud Light, and he's just dunking all over everything.
Hugh invites Zach out to dinner just to have a friendly conversation, and the next thing you know, Hugh's giving advice on how to coach the team.
All right. So, criteria-wise, is this simply a cumulative ranking? Does having a great team, like the Chiefs for the AFC West, obviously outrank, have a division with 4 decent teams? How does that work?
I would say that you're looking from top to bottom. So being top heavy does not, because if you have one good team, that doesn't mean your division's good.
Right.
That means 75% of your division is bad. So it's more of a top to bottom thing. And with the NFC East, it kind of feels like they're all average to below average. Washington, best team in the division last year, went 7-9. Even if they improved 3 wins, they're 10-7. I don't think anyone really believes that any NFC East team is going to top 10 wins. I mean, do you guys think any of these teams are going to top 10 wins this year?
So
I think it's reasonable that a team could get to 10. I don't.
Yeah, no. 10. 10 is the seal. I think 10-7 is where the first place NFC East team ends up. That's it. At best.
So let's look at it another way. So that division combined for 23 wins last year. Are they going to get 25 or more? And I'm adding just 2 games because of the increased schedule games. Is this division going to combine for 25 wins?
Yes. So when you say that, Ryan,
25?
4 teams, 16
They only got
games.
23 last year.
Well, they played 64 total. They went 23-40-1, and that was the second worst overall record ever for any division. And the only worst division was 2008 NFC West. So it was a historically bad performance. So can these 4 teams combine for 25 wins? I think they do, because I don't think you're going to follow up historically bad performance with another historically bad performance. I just think it's going to be bad, but not historically bad.
So the Cowboys have a 9.5 win total that's juiced to the under.
Oh yeah, go through the win totals. We'll add them up.
7. What?
I'm sorry. We'll add those up. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. The Giants have a 7-win total that's juiced to the over. Washington has an 8-win total that's really basically 8.5. It's minus 155.
That's 24 right there.
Yeah, that's 15 plus 23, I think, or 20. Yeah, it's 24 right there. And then the Eagles, I'm sure that they're 7 heavily juiced to the under.
31.
So we'll say so that's 30-31, which sounds about right. Because if
Okay.
if a team wins 10 games, then they only need the other 3 teams just need to combine for 15 wins to get to 25. And I think they'll do that. But
my only thing is, I'm not sure that the NFC East wouldn't win a head-to-head, like the Big Ten ACC Challenge, that they wouldn't win a head-to-head battle with the AFC South.
Well,
Maybe it's wholly dependent on Deshaun Watson too.
Earlier this summer, we did a mailbag question about which division we take to make our team. I took the NFC East just sort of as a crazy flyer with the understanding that Dak Prescott has to play well, but they have good players in that division. But the AFC South, I think that's a fair point. I think that's maybe AFC South wins 6 out of 10. Maybe it's 5.5.
So the best team in theory in the AFC South is the Titans. Cowboys Titans is just a shootout, and I think it could go either way. I would probably lean towards the Titans in that game just because I think Derrick Henry would run all over them. But I don't think the Titans are stopping the Cowboys.
Both defenses stink.
As far as
it's Mike McCarthy,
you have Colts and Washington. I will take Washington all day in that.
We just don't know about Carson.
Why Colts and Washington? Like how are you pairing these games up?
Who's the second best team?
One of the Titans and Washington because the Titans came in first place. First place versus first place.
I think we're just going.
The Titans are now the favorite to win the division.
So I was just going by the standings from last year.
No, I'm going on the Vegas's odds to win the division.
Okay,
which seems more important than the standings from last year,
I guess.
Well, Carson Wentz was on the Eagles last year, so standings seem irrelevant.
I guess.
I know what you're saying. I mean, I think Washington. I don't think any of us are picking Dallas to win the division.
Well, I mean, the Cowboys are the favorite to win the division.
I understand that, but I understand Breech's point.
Do you think the Cowboys are going to win the division? I'm saying you're going by ambiguous odds that we don't necessarily agree with.
The 2 teams that play for the 1 seed, the number 1 matchup in those 2 divisions.
Okay, Titans versus Washington.
I'll take Washington.
I think that's really close. I think that's
close. Yeah,
I think
Colts
it's 5
versus Cowboys.
I'm taking Carson Wentz over Mike McCarthy. That's my math there.
I'll take Mike McCarthy. I'll take Dak over.
And also, since we might as well just lump in the AFC South right now because they were 7th. It's not like we're arguing the 8th ranked division versus the 4th ranked division. And
this is exactly the sort of thing you would do if you realized you were wrong and you tried to skew the results.
No, not at all. I'm saying that part of the tiebreaker to put the AFC South ahead is that they have 2 teams that are considered playoff contenders, whereas I don't think anybody thinks NFC East has a chance of getting more than 1 team in the playoffs.
I would disagree with that.
The playoffs
you
have
think,
not.
I think the Giants are whipping the Jaguars.
The playoffs aren't expanding either. Same playoffs last year, right? Just the 1 extra team. Gotcha.
And then I think that the Eagles are probably better than the Texans.
Wait a second. You think the Giants are whipping who?
The Jaguars.
I don't know. Here's the thing. Like my hesitation with the Jaguars is that the Urban Meyer and Tim Tebow are my 2 concerns with the Jaguars. So right now I'm on team Giants.
Yeah. I would give the edge to the NFC East over the AFC South is what I'm saying. But I mean, it is close. Like it's
and real quick, the NFC East, they're out. Ryan talked about the 23 games, but 13, 14, whatever those wins are division wins. So like they came against each other. So you kind of need to throw those out the window. They're 12. So you play 24 games. So you get 12 wins and 12 losses from playing in your division. So of those 23, you have to take some of out. They went 10, 29, and 1 out of the division. So when they played teams that were not in the NFC East. And so now you're talking one of the worst performances. And the AFC South went 15 and 25 in games played out of division.
I think Breech is right. I think that you can postulate that the NFC East would beat the AFC South, but they didn't do it. And I don't know, like Ryan Fitzpatrick, which Ryan Fitzpatrick we're going to see. We know Ryan Tannehill is probably the most consistent quarterback in those 2 divisions. And that's primarily because Dak has been injured. I don't trust Mike McCarthy. We don't know about the quarterback situation in Philadelphia. Daniel Jones has to play well this year. And again, Ryan Fitzpatrick, the other division, Tannehill I already mentioned. I suspect Carson Wentz is going to be better. I don't know. Houston is a crapshoot, and I think Trevor Lawrence will be. What do you think? 60% of Justin Herbert. This is what we can expect from Trevor Lawrence.
That seems fair.
Yeah.
And of all the teams in the NFC East, any one of them would take Trevor Lawrence except the Cowboys. 3 or 4 would take him if they had the chance.
Well, but I think you said that about
Cowboys might take Trevor Lawrence.
You can say that about 27 teams probably. I mean,
yeah,
maybe 25.
Just based on the contract alone. But yes, the Cowboys wouldn't. If the Cowboys were trying to win right now, they would rather have Dak. But I agree with your point there.
Yeah, it's close. It's close. Was it close in your mind, Breech, or you were definitively?
No, it was close. I mean, that's what I was saying. That's why this isn't like a huge. Again, if I had AFC South higher, like at 5th or 6th, then that would be a little bit different. But they are at 7th, and the tiebreaker again for me was who's going to have the most playoff contenders, and I thought that was the South, and how these teams did last year. Obviously, these teams, we have new teams. The Colts have a new quarterback. Washington has new quarterback. There are teams with new quarterbacks, but you can still see how Jacksonville went 1-15, and the AFC South still had a better out of division record than the NFC East.
Hey, Brinson, what is the Jacksonville Jaguars win total? Do you have that in front of you?
It is set at 6, juiced over 140.
Now, Breech, how much of that 6 did you attribute to Tim Tebow being on the roster?
All of it. I think he accounts for 6 wins on his own. They're going to get 12 wins.
Is anyone taking the over 6 among us? Because I am not.
I would take the over on 6.
I don't think
because
that's
of the division. I think
somebody literally asked me on Twitter this week. He said, "I've got a question for you, Breech. Can Trevor Lawrence get Jacksonville to the playoffs?" That is from @JK Sports 8. So it's funny you asked about the over under, and I told him my pre-training camp prediction is 6-11, without knowing what the over under was. So I don't think Brinson's crazy.
All right, we'll see.
So anyway, that's 8 and 7. I think those are clearly the 2 worst divisions in football, though, right?
Would you have the AFC South 8, Brinson?
I would have the AFC South 8 and the NFC East 7.
What about you, Wilson?
No, I'm with Breech so far.
Okay.
I have very little faith in the NFC East in terms of consistency. Again, quarterback situation in Philadelphia, Mike McCarthy in Dallas. Those are my 2 biggest concerns, and I think Ryan Fitzpatrick will be fine. I like Ron Rivera. I think I like I like the Giants. What's the Giants coach? I can't remember his name.
Joe Judge?
Yeah, I like Joe Judge.
Judge Joe.
The first year, but Danny Dimes is going to be a huge question mark. Who's better this year, Danny Dimes or Carson Wentz?
Carson Wentz.
Ooh. There you go. Debo.
Danny Dimes. I'll take Danny Dimes over Carson
Wentz.
I'm on the Wentz wagon.
Broken man. This little rejuvenation. If Carson Wentz come out wins a comeback player of the year award for not sucking this year, I'm going to be furious.
All right. Well, put money on it. Let Debo be the tiebreaker. Who's going to have a better year, Debo? Carson or Danny?
You know that answer.
There it is. Danny.
The fact that Eagles fans are so loving the Colts is it's weird.
I don't think that's true. I think I'm an exception. I don't know if you're basing that off me or other things that you've seen. I think a majority of Eagles fans would probably root for failure for Carson.
Oh, so they want Carson to crash and burn.
By the way,
and be like, we were right. Jalen Hurts doesn't suck.
Brinson, are you the same guy who broke up with the San Diego / LA Chargers to love the Colts when they had Phillip Rivers? Is that you?
Yes.
I love the look on your face when you realize where I was going with that.
Yeah, I was like, and then broke up with the Colts to go back to the Rams because Phillip Rivers retired.
All right, what's next, Breech?
Who's number 6, Breech?
Yeah, number 6. I thought, okay, so number 6 to me is the hardest because of all the drama that's going on. It's the NFC North. It is, we don't know what's going on with the Aaron Rodgers situation. The Lions have been hot garbage ever since they fired who, Ryan?
Matt Patricia, my guy, who I am supposed
Jim Caldwell,
to be.
Ryan.
Jim Caldwell. Since they fired Jim
I was thinking
Caldwell.
about the person who wrote in and said, I'm Matt Patricia. And we compared ourselves to the coaches.
And, the Vikings are still, the Bears and Vikings both didn't finish above 500 last season. And, the Packers seem like they're in total disarray until this Rodgers situation gets figured out. So, I have them.
Let me ask you this, Breech. I haven't followed. I know you have, Brinson, the match where Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady and Phil Mickelson, and who was the fourth?
Bryson.
Oh, Bryson was. Okay, so
Aaron Rodgers was awesome.
But he skirted around questions when asked about his future in the NFL, correct? So, Breech, I've always been at 1%. I think the last probably a month, 6 weeks. Where are you now on Aaron Rodgers returning in September at the latest to play for the Packers?
I've always been hovering at like 10 to 15% just because I don't think the Packers want to trade him, and they're going to do everything they can not to trade him. But at some point, you get to September 11th or September 10th, and the season starts in September 12th. Like, what are you doing? You got to make a decision. So
where are you at?
I think if Rodgers doesn't show up for maybe the first 3 weeks, reality's going to hit, and they're going to say, all right, we got to deal him.
Where are you at percentage wise?
15% that Rodgers plays for the Packers.
You're still there. Where are you, Brinson?
65% that he plays for the Packers.
Ooh.
Good Lord. That's bullish. All right. So are you more concerned about Jared Goff, Breech, or what's his name?
Wait, hold on. I've just been told, bit of a breaking news segment here.
What do you got?
Oh, it's time for Ice Cold Takes presented by Bud Light. That's right. And here is my Ice Cold Take presented by Bud Light. Wait for it.
Oh, gosh.
Wait for it. No matter whether Aaron Rodgers plays or not, the Minnesota Vikings will win the NFC North. That is my Ice Cold Take presented by Bud Light. Your thoughts, guys?
It's not crazy. Here's the thing. I think if Aaron Rodgers plays, I'm again 1%, Breech is 15. Brinson, I'm out 65%. He can be vindictive, and I don't think he would throw the game, but he feels sort of like the kid in Bad News Bears who holds onto the ball at the pitcher's mound while the other team rounds the bases. So, yeah, I think the Vikings, if they can get out of their own way, we all like Kirby Cousins to varying degrees. I don't think he can take you all the way, but he can get you to the playoffs. And I think there's a chance they can win that division. I like the players around them. I'm trying to think who they drafted, the kid, the quarterback out of Texas A&M. Kellen Mond, who has a chance to potentially play as well. They're getting some guys back. Michael Pierce is coming back, who opted out last year.
For the Vikings?
I don't know.
Kirk Cousins was good last year.
They drafted him in the third round. But my point is this, that they I think they bolstered the offensive line. Like I've been so far out of the loop, I got to familiarize myself with everything they've done. Yeah, they had Christian Darrisaw, they're good there. They got Wyatt Davis, which is great news in terms of up in the offensive line. The defensive players are coming back.
Any other offensive line pieces that could develop into Pro Bowlers?
Oh, yes, of course. Garrett Bradbury, who should have been offensive rookie of the year 2 years ago, but that didn't happen. Yes, absolutely, this team could win the division. I don't know if you have the William Hill odds in front of you, but I would imagine right now either it's off or it's for the Vikings.
The Vikings are actually plus 120 to make the playoffs. Ooh. I really like that. Their win total is 8.5. Overs minus 170. Those two don't line up very well.
I was going to say, that's interesting.
If your win total is basically 9, your odds should be minus like 110 to make the playoffs. So that's a good bet. If anybody has it out there on William Hill, you should check that out. To win the division, the Vikings are plus 230. The Packers still minus 120. This number, by the way, you don't bet this if you like the Vikings right now, because this is a halfway hedge on Aaron Rodgers playing this year.
Why wouldn't you bet that now?
The Vikings favored, everybody hammers the Packers, and then they're exposed if Aaron Rodgers comes back. But they don't want to make the Packers they don't want to make the Vikings like 4-1, and then Aaron Rodgers doesn't come back, and everybody hammers the Vikings. So this is basically.
I think you hammer the Vikings now if you are like me or Breech, and you feel like there's less than a 15% chance that Aaron Rodgers is coming back. Because if he comes back.
Yeah, I think if you're like Brinson and you think the Vikings are going to win it anyway, I think you get this number now. Because I don't think there's any way this number you're going to get any more value. Because if Rodgers is definitely returning, maybe that drops to like plus 250. But I think
no. If Rodgers comes back, the Packers will be minus 250, and the Vikings will be 3.5 or 4-1. I think.
Yeah, but then you're not winning. Then you're not winning the division. That's the whole point. You're making this bet.
Oh, that's my whole my ice cold take presented by Bud Light is that the Vikings are winning no matter what. So,
and the one thing about the Packers is that let's say Aaron Rodgers does show up, they get something done, but he misses like the first 3 weeks of training camp. You look at their early schedule; 3 of their first 4 games are against the Saints, the 49ers, and the Steelers. So all games that could go either way. And if
Jameis Winston. Who knows who's playing quarterback? Jimmy G will probably play quarterback, and then a raggedy arm Ben Roethlisberger.
But all those teams have good defenses.
I think Jordan Love could go 2-1.
Well, let's just say that Rodgers is the quarterback. They start 1-3 after all that drama. I mean, that sets the stage for an implosion. Then you have a total rift, like the coaching staff, behind closed doors. You have sources saying if Rodgers would have been for all of training camp, the Packers offense would have been running better and wouldn't have lost these games. Then you have Rodgers camp saying stuff like it could get ugly if they get off to an ugly start if Rodgers skips time.
Breech, Brinson, would you rather be Matt LaFleur having to deal with this headache, or would you rather be Zach Taylor, who has year 2 with Joe Burrow and a pretty good team around you and no pressure, basically? That's you, Brinson.
Wait, would I rather be? Sorry, I was texting my wife about Boss Baby 2 and tickets.
Like that is the best excuse you come up with yet.
Brinson's bitter because his family went to see Space Jam 2.
Space Jam's not out to July 16th.
Without him, they bought tickets. So now he texts and said, "Look, if you go see Boss Baby 2 without me, we got problems."
What was
That's
the
where we are right now.
Zach Taylor, Joe Burrow, or who?
Would you rather be Matt LaFleur and the headaches you're having to deal with, basically since you arrived, although you're winning football games, 13 games in your first year, or Zach Taylor, zero pressure? John Breech is your biggest supporter. You get Joe Burrow back in year 2 and all the other playmakers that are now.
Oh, I mean, Matt LaFleur could go 2-15 next year and still keep his job.
But the mental
and Zach Taylor can't. So
the mental pain you have to deal with every day with the whole Aaron Rodgers thing. Would you rather just be over it, or would you rather have Zach Taylor with a chance to perhaps turn the corner? I think they're winning 8 games.
I'd rather be further away from getting fired, which is what.
All right.
Which is what Matt LaFleur is.
That's fair.
All right. So you'd rather
26-6 in his first 2 years. He has.
That's not the point,
number
though.
Of losses in his first 2 years as Zach Taylor has wins in his first 2 years.
But the point is that he has to deal with a steaming pile of dog doo-doo every single day.
He ain't gonna have to deal with an unemployment line. I mean,
I don't know if it's worth the mental strain. Is all I'm saying. I would think about it.
They literally are the opposite of each other. 26-6, and Zach Taylor is 6-25-1.
All right.
Yikes.
So
what's ironic is that Matt LaFleur is Breech's doppelganger.
That's right.
Now,
by the way, so Justin Fields.
By the way, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say Justin Fields. Hopefully, he wins the job at some point. But that Bears team still went 8-8 last year, as to why they're currently the 6th team, and I think the 6th seed in Breech's rankings. And I think Detroit's probably the worst team in the NFL, maybe worse than even Houston. But I think the other 3 teams have a chance to sort of do some things. And there's a chance if Aaron Rodgers doesn't come back that maybe the Packers even finish 3rd with Jordan Love if he ends up struggling.
Is there a case to be made if Aaron Rodgers doesn't come back that this is the worst division in football?
No way.
What's funny is they actually played the 2 divisions below them last season. They went 8-8 versus the AFC South and 3-1 versus the NFC East.
There you go.
And I do think you could make an argument that you could put them at 7 or 8, Brinson. I don't think that's completely crazy. If Rodgers is
if no Rodgers, suddenly it's Andy Dalton and the Bears and Kirk Cousins and the Vikings are your best 2 teams. I might take the Titans and Colts over them, and might take Dallas and Washington over them.
You basically have 2 Andy Daltons as the best quarterbacks because Kirk Cousins is the rich man's Andy Dalton. Yeah, right. and Andy Dalton is poor man's Andy Dalton.
But Justin Fields could end up playing and being, above average, and Jordan Love we have no idea about, and I hope he turns out well.
And then the other 2 teams.
What if Jared Goff is the comeback player of the year? You never know.
But I mean, I'm just saying the Lions and the Packers with Jordan Love are going to hang with the Jaguars and the Texans.
Are the Lions worse than the Texans and or Jaguars and or Eagles? Sorry, Deepa.
I think the Lions could beat the Texans.
The Eagles are the best team in that bunch.
Yeah. So that's my case. It maybe NFC East.
Yeah.
No Aaron Rodgers. Maybe NFC East is the.
How did the Lions win more games than the Eagles last year? Good Lord.
All right, you heard at the top of the show, but we are officially a Bud Light podcast. We're Bud Light guys. I'm a Bud Light guy. Breech, you're a Bud Light guy. Look at that little frothy Bud Light. Oh, man, that looks good. Bud Light. Bleep o'clock in the afternoon on Thursday. We could not be more excited, as you can tell, and we can't wait for summer filled with ice cold Bud Light. Bud Light wants to make sure you have an awesome summer as well. And to start, they want you to have a beer on them. That's right. Because you're a PickSix podcast listener, Bud Light wants to buy you a beer. How you enjoy it, that's your business. Head to BudLightLegends.com to sign up and claim your free beer. Again, BudLightLegends.com. Go there, sign up, get your free beer on us. If you do it, if you get that free beer, when you do it, when you go do that, because you're going to go do it, it's a free beer. Why would you not take a free beer? Go to BudLightLegends.com, sign up, take a screenshot too. Tag Bud Light, tag PickSix Pod, and send it our way, and let us know that you've claimed your free beer. I know I'll be claiming. I don't know if I can claim my free beer. Maybe that's probably some rules against that, but I've got it right here, so it doesn't matter.
If it involves free beer, Brinson will figure out a way around the rules. He'll find all the loopholes.
Yes, that's correct.
You're a loophole master.
By the way, one of my favorite Bud Light Super Bowl memories, back in the day, Brinson would be so busy with parties that he would let me go to the Bud Light party because he couldn't go, Breech. Me and Borowski went to the Bud Light party at the New Orleans Super Bowl and hung out with David Koechner.
I was with you. We couldn't get in because it was so crowded.
That was the second time we met up after you came back from the NFLPA party. We tried to go back, but David Koechner talked to me and Borowski for 10 minutes. He must have wanted to kill himself. Saw your guy AJ Green there. Saw Trent Richardson coming into the NFL. But yeah, so Bud Light permeates all our lives.
One of my
favorite. It really does. Another Super Bowl story real quick. Super Bowl 23, Bengals 49ers. You know why that has ties to Bud Light? Because it was the Bud Bowl 1.
Oh love it. God, I love the Bud Bowl.
Remember the Bud Bowl?
Of course I do. I just brought it up.
Also in that New Orleans Super Bowl, this is how you know Bud Light's the best. Because they had on Saturday night, so Saturday night, all the parties bring out their biggest headliners. And some other company, it was not beer related, it got Justin Timberlake. That's cool. That's fine. You know who Bud Light got? Stevie Wonder. You know what's better? Stevie Wonder. I went to that Bud Light party, and you walk over this little stanchion thing and down in, and there's just Bud Light everywhere. And Stevie Wonder's just up there playing the hits allegedly as blind as can be. And just banging out songs.
What does that mean, allegedly?
Somebody Jones is always alleged. Stevie Wonder's not actually blind. I think it's a bit.
That's funny.
And it was one of the best parties, best concerts I've ever been to. And it was primarily because I was just sitting there slugging free Bud Light.
Here's how old we are. That was 8 years ago, 8.5 years ago.
Oh, God. Joe Flacco was the Super Bowl MVP that year. Breech wasn't even working for CBS. He stole a job.
No, he was there. He was back.
I was covering college.
He was back
way back in the day. That's when I was covering the Pac-12.
The Super Bowl.
He was back in California when it made the power go out at the Superdome, and then
he blew out an outlet just so he could.
And then here we are 9 years later. And I'm on a podcast sponsored by Bud Light, so it all worked.
It all came full circle.
All full circle. That's right. Breech was conceived at the Bud Bowl, and here we are.
Yikes. Yowzers.
Who checks in at number 5 on your list of top divisions, Breech?
Number 5 is the NFC South. Brinson, you open this up by asking kind of how do this rankings come together? If a division has one really good team, what does that mean? And that's kind of the NFC South. They have one team that everyone expects to be really good this year, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the other teams just have a bunch of giant question marks. Could the Saints be good? Sure. They won the division last year. It wasn't the Buccaneers. They went 12-4. So you lose Drew Brees, who, the last 2 seasons when he was injured, the Saints were still winning games. You saw Teddy Bridgewater go 5-0. We saw the Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill combo do okay last year. So there's no reason this team can't win 9, 10, maybe 11 games with who knows what Sean Payton's going to do at quarterback. And then I think the Panthers are going to be better. Brinson, I'm sure you can tell us how optimistic you are about them, but I wouldn't be surprised if they get to 8 or 9 wins. And there's no way the Falcons can be any worse than they were last year.
So the Buccaneers are, I think you make a case that this team should be higher. The Buccaneers over-under, or this division should be higher, excuse me. Buccaneers over-under is 11.5 juiced up. That is a lot. The Saints is 9.5 juiced way down, but I think the Saints have a lot more upside than people are giving them credit for with Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill. The Panthers are set at 7.5 juiced the under. I also think with Sam Darnold and the offensive pieces, they have a lot more upside than people are giving them credit for. And then the Falcons at 7.5 juiced the over, actually. If Atlanta can somehow manufacture something on defense with Dean Pease, calling the plays, and he's been able to do that, maybe this team is better than people think. I think you can make a case that this team could be as low as 6 and as high as 4. So I think a little variation here. I don't know if I can push them up any higher than that, but I do think that this division could get as high as 3.
Yeah.
I'd be moving a team in the top 2 further down.
How much of a downgrade is Jameis from Drew Brees, who incidentally somehow finished, let's see, Drew Brees finished.
How much of an upgrade is he from Drew Brees?
Well, I'm saying down.
Ooh.
I don't necessarily disagree with that. I'm saying downgrade because as I look at Drew Brees' DVOA numbers from last year, his value per play, he ranks 7th, which seems absolutely bonkers.
He wasn't good.
He was not good.
So if
is there a drop off? Let me ask you that.
I think that Vegas and the fantasy community and the general football watching world is building in a gigantic drop off. I mean, the Saints over under is 9.5, right? And juiced way under. So that tells you that the expectation is they will go 9-7 at best, according to Vegas. I'm in
9-8.
Or not, God, 9-8. Oh, I've been dodging that bullet for a while. I've been doing these fantasy drafts this offseason. Jameis Winston's not going high. I mean, people are not expecting him to be good this year. But I think with the
where did Drew Brees go last year in these fantasy drafts?
I mean, earlier than that, just because he's Drew Brees. But I mean, middle tier of the quarterbacks. I think there is a better than 30% chance that Jameis Winston, and this is in my opinion, Jameis Winston will play 70% of the snaps. Taysom Hill gets 30%. And they'll use Taysom Hill more than they used Drew Brees because Jameis will be willing to come off the field and not complain the way that Drew Brees would and be insulted the way that Drew Brees would. And that Jameis Winston, there's a 30% chance that he's an upgrade over Drew Brees.
Yeah, it might be even higher than that.
Might be.
And remember, last 2 seasons, again, Saints 8-1 in games where Drew Brees didn't play. And arguably, Drew Brees cost them the playoff game against the Buccaneers. They would have won that game if Drew Brees didn't have a disastrous game.
Would both of you rather have Jameis Winston on this team in 2021 or Teddy Bridgewater? He went 5-0 2 years ago.
I would rather take the upside of Jameis Winston.
I think so too.
Yeah, I'd probably go Jameis.
Does anyone
in the same way that the Buccaneers upgraded massively by getting rid of Jameis Winston and bringing in Tom Brady, who doesn't make the mistakes that Jameis Winston makes? I think there's a chance that Sean Payton can upgrade Jameis Winston and give them that vertical element, give them a more dynamic offense, while also potentially restricting the mistakes that Jameis Winston makes through both coaching and play calling. Now, that is obviously taking a pretty big leap of faith, given what we've seen from Jameis Winston in his career, but the talent is there. He's got eye surgery. If they can harvest it, maybe it can work out.
And who wins more games, Sam Darnold or Matt Ryan?
I'll say Sam Darnold.
Ooh, what's funny about that is that, the past few weeks, we were going through team by team predictions. Each one of our writers here at CBS Sports handled team. I did the Bengals, of course. And we finally finished all those, and I rounded up all the predictions. And the NFC South, Brinson, that's what they have too. We have the Buccaneers at 12-5, the Saints at 9-8, the Panthers at 8-9, and the Falcons at 6-11.
Well, there you go. I think it's wide open on that end. But yeah, the NFC South, the Buccaneers could be by far and away the best team in football this year.
Here's another thing to keep in mind. Depending on how this year goes, because I think Tom Brady, ironically, will be the one that's coming back. 3 of these teams could be looking for quarterbacks in the first round.
Sure. Yeah.
Maybe 4 if Tom Brady does retire, which I don't think will happen. But point. I mean, or trying to find a quarterback in the offseason. Absolutely.
No, it's a great point. But yeah, I think the NFC South has a ton of upside, but also has a pretty good amount of downside. If Sam Darnold washes out, the Falcons can't protect Matt Ryan, the defense is terrible, and if the Jameis Taysom Hill thing bust out, I think the Saints have a high enough floor where I'm not that worried about them. But all 3 of those teams could win 8 games or 9 games or less, 8 games or less, and then all of a sudden, you have the Buccaneers, and that's it.
Any chance the Buccaneers? Any chance the Buccaneers regress?
No.
Like win 8 or 9 games?
No.
I mean, because they were 6-5 at one point, they got off to a slow start, and so
but there's a Tom Brady acclimating to a new.
Well, right. So now he knows the offense. Now it's hard to see them being worse.
That would be a massive surprise, given the way that they handled their offseason, bringing everyone back.
He is going to be 60 years old. No one cares.
Age is just a number.
Last year,
age is just a number.
Who checks in at number 4 for you, Breech?
Number 4 is the AFC East. I think you have. I think it depends.
You have the Dolphins and the.
I think it depends on how you feel about the Patriots, but if you feel like they are a playoff contender this year, and I feel like a lot of people do, the Bills are the second or third best team in the AFC. The Dolphins, if Tua just takes a small step forward, any kind of step forward, then they're a playoff contender. And really, you have one garbage team in the Jets, but, they're a total mystery this year because they have a new coach and a new quarterback.
I look at this division a lot like the NFC South, honestly. You have one team that clearly is going to be elite almost no matter what. Obviously, you have injuries, right? To Tom Brady or Josh Allen, maybe the Bills or the Bucs stink. But more than likely, when you look at the Bills and the Bucs, you're talking about teams that are going to win 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 games, right?
Mm-hmm.
Vegas agrees with us. Their over-under is 11, 10 and a half, 11, 11 and a half, whatever it is. So in that respect, you have that elite team up top. And then there's a lot of question marks surrounding the Patriots. There's a lot of question marks surrounding the Dolphins. There's a lot of
I don't think there's a lot surrounding the Patriots. It comes down to Cam Newton and Mac Jones. I think everything else.
Those are big question marks.
Yeah, but that's it, though. They spent $40 billion in the offseason. N'Keal Harry wants to be traded. I don't think anyone cares about that. Right. I think and the big question around the Dolphins, of course, is Tua. And I don't want to crap on Tua because people have actually pointed out that I just reflexively. We'll see.
Well, I guess look at it like this, Wilson. The two teams in the middle of these divisions, you have the Panthers and the Saints and the Pats and the Dolphins. You have huge questions about at the quarterback position for all four.
Yeah.
That's sort of what I meant is that there's some similarities. And then the team at the bottom, Falcons and the Jets probably aren't similar, but we maybe do Falcons and or Jets and Panthers. I don't know.
Who has a better year, Tua or Zach Wilson?
I'll take Tua just because he's been in the NFL 1 year longer.
I'll take Tua because he has better people around him as well.
I really like what the Jets are doing, though.
I'll take Zach Wilson.
Okay. I like the Jets. I like the Jets a lot. I want to like the Jets a lot.
Yeah, you said that 2 years ago when they
now they got rid of Adam Gase, though. They added Elijah Moore. They added Corey Davis.
Beefed up their offensive line.
Quentin Williams, Mekhi Becton. Yeah, they get Elijah Vera Tucker. If Zach Wilson is good, the Jets can win 7-8 games.
What? This year?
Yeah.
I don't think that's completely preposterous.
You'd have to be Justin Herbert good because they won 7 games with Anthony Lynn trying everything in his power to not help them win late.
Oh, right. Yeah. I don't think it's out of the question that they could win some games. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I do like the coaching staff. Hopefully.
What's the lowest this division could go? 6?
I mean, like win total. So they won 23 plus 9. They won 31 games last year. And that was the high water mark. That's the prediction for the NFC East this year.
So the Bills are basically predicted to win 11 games. The Patriots are predicted they're over under 9 minus 150. Wow. That's kind of surprising. Dolphins over under 9 minus 140. Wow.
Ooh.
We didn't own Wilson. Wow.
Wow.
And the Jets are over under 6.
So that's 35. So they're 4 games, predicted to be 4 games better than the NFC East, according to the bookmakers.
Bookmakers.
Breech, is that a scheduling thing, perhaps?
A what?
That the AFC East has an easier schedule, maybe? They get to play the AFC South?
They play the AFC South.
That's why.
And the NFC East.
Ooh.
They get the NFC East in the special 17th game, so they don't play
the full division.
Right.
Well, we'll find out in.
But then they're also playing. They're also playing the
teams,
NFC South, so they're playing 3 of the divisions I have ranked below them.
But so that means the bottom they play the NFC South too.
Yeah,
there's a chance the AFC East could be like 3rd in the division power rankings.
Oh, just based on the crappy schedule they have in front of them.
Maybe 2nd.
A lot of winnable games.
They're 4th right now, I guess.
A lot of winnable games.
A lot of pressure on Zach and Tua and Mac McCorkle.
Man, maybe we should bet on the Patriots to make the playoffs.
Let's do it right now.
We've been saying that forever.
They're plus 125 to make the playoffs.
That's lower than what it was when we talked about it.
Can we start our Bud Light bet of the week? Brinson, you just make a bet live on air.
It's a great segment.
Yes. I knew I could come up with something.
Debo, what do you think? Unfortunately, we've already sold the package, and Bud Light doesn't want to be associated with gambling, and you're fired, Breech. But other than that, we're good to go. No, I like that idea. Debo, float that up the
flagpole.
The old flagpole and see what they say. Anywho, all right, let's take a break. When we come back, the top 3 divisions in John Breech's divisional power rankings. All right, who's number 3 in your divisional power rankings, Breech, and why are they crazy controversial in terms of the ranking here?
Number 3
Has
is
to be the AFC North. It just
the
has to be.
AFC, not North. AFC
What?
West. It's the AFC
What?
West.
That's crazy talk. What are you doing?
It is the AFC West. Do you think they should be higher?
Take off the bra and be a man.
Great.
Yeah, all right. Explain yourself, weirdo.
Well, I mean, obviously the Chiefs are in the division, so that automatically makes them good. But I'm not sure if you follow the other 3 teams. None of them finished above 500 last year, but they're all better. I would put the AFC West up against a lot of divisions. I think they're better than most, which is why I have them at 3 and not 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8.
Wow. Thank you for that explanation. That's incredible. I think they're better than some, which is why they're 3. But what are you, Prisco?
Learn
I mean, this is so.
Learn the game.
You talked about the Buccaneers, the NFC South and the AFC East, where you have the Buccaneers kind of the top heaviness of the division because the Buccaneers are so good. The other 3 are a mystery. The AFC East, the Bills are so good. The other 3 are a mystery. And then you have the AFC West, where the Chiefs are good. The other 3 are a mystery. But I think the 3 under the Chiefs have a higher upside than the 3 under the Bills or the 3 under the Buccaneers. And that is why they're ahead.
We've discussed this numerous times. Anthony Lynn cost the Chargers probably 3 or 4 wins.
Aaron Rodgers could go to the Broncos.
Aaron Rodgers could go to the Broncos.
And if that happens, I move them up to 2 or 1.
You can't. These are set in stone.
If Aaron Rodgers goes to the Broncos, this is easily the number 1 division in football.
And not easily. I think you could have a conversation about the other one that I'm assuming it's the AFC North, so I can't wait to talk about that. But right, Aaron Rodgers could go. You can't change them. These are in stone, Breech. But I think also every year we crap all over Derek Carr and John Gruden, and every year the offense looks good. The defense is a huge problem.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I would put them ahead of your number 2 seed.
I'm not going to be out here standing for the Raiders. You know that. I do, however, think that. I mean, I think the Chargers have a chance to win the division.
Yeah, we'll see. New coaching staff, but I mean, Derwin James coming back. Justin Herbert may not be as good as he was last year, but I think he'll be really good. I don't think he'll take a huge backslide. I don't expect him to. I expect him to get better. But even if that doesn't show itself in terms of productivity, he'll be going in the right direction. Of course, Drew Lock is a huge question, as he was last year when I predicted the Broncos to get to the playoffs. Thank you, Drew Lock.
I think they're too low.
But I think
there's only 2 spots left.
Yeah, I think they're just 1 too low.
They're 3rd. I mean, you have Patrick Mahomes. All right, so
I think they're 1 too low. I think they're 1 spot too low.
They're 1 too low. It's homerism shining in.
How is that possible?
Yeah,
I don't believe in
Ryan, who's
homerism.
winning a game between the Raiders and the Bengals?
Come on. I mean, the question is who's winning the game between the Broncos and the Bengals? That's the question.
Well, the Broncos are stomping the Bengals.
With Drew Lock as quarterback?
Yeah.
What do you think, Breech? I know the answer, but I'll ask you anyway.
I think it's not a stopping.
The spread's 6.5. Who are you taking?
The Bengals.
The Bengals
And guess what? The Broncos and Bengals play each other this year, so we'll find out on the field.
Find out.
We will find out on the field.
Tattoos involved too.
All right, so Steelers and Broncos, who wins?
Well, the Steelers beat the crap out of them last year. They knocked Drew Lock out of the game.
So beat the crap out of it. It was closer than you thought.
And I will say
they ran up the score and then they let the Broncos.
So the Chiefs went 10-0. They went undefeated in non-divisional games last year. So outside of the AFC West, and that has only happened. That was only the 4th time that's happened over the past decade. And so when you look at the AFC West in full, the other 3 teams went 12-18 outside the division. So they just got beat up. And like you guys said, there's a lot of reasons to like those teams because the Raiders offense could be good again. The Chargers have a competent coaching staff for once, and the Broncos defense should be better, and whoever's quarterback should be better than they were last year, maybe. So there's a lot of reasons to like them, but I don't know that I would move them up over a division that produced 3 playoff teams last year.
To your point, they should have been 11-19 because the Jets let them win that game thanks to Greg Williams against the Raiders.
Ridiculous.
That was probably the craziest.
That's a good point. That's an argument against putting the AFC West up higher.
Look,
all right,
it's okay. It's fine if you want to do that. I think it's a little too high. I would go the other direction.
I would have them second.
Yeah, I'd have
just because I'm skeptical about the number 2.
And you guys would have the AFC North at 3.
I assume that they're your number 2. pick.
Number 2 is the team that Brinson and Wilson would both have at 3. The only team in the NFL, the
I
only
didn't say
division,
3. I just said I wouldn't have it 2.
the only division that produced 3 playoff teams last year. My second ranked division is the AFC North.
Why do you keep pointing out last year?
Well, that's
Because these teams are going to be just as good.
All right, so the Browns win total is 10 over -145. My goodness.
If you have 3 teams that made the playoffs last year, yes, you're going to bring that up and say, do they have a good shot at making the playoffs this year? Yes, they do.
The Ravens is 11, juice to the under. The Bengals is 6.5, juice to the under. And the Steelers are, Steelers are -180 not to make the playoffs, and their win total is 9, -150 to the under. So 9,
Really?
11, that's 20 plus 10, 30 plus 6.5. So 36.5.
Oh, and they won, let's see, they won 38 games last year. So not that much different. Just
So they're expecting less, though.
reorganizing the win totals a little bit. Well, they're expecting less with 4 more games. So that's also noteworthy. Yeah,
Oh, good point.
there you go. So, Breech, what are your rankings of how these teams finish in the division, Breech?
Probably Ravens, Browns, Steelers, Bengals.
Yeah, I think Pittsburgh is 3rd on everyone's list. I'm going to go Cleveland.
I almost used one of my Bud Light hot takes was, or cold takes, ice cold Bud Light, ice cold takes presented by Bud Light was going to be Steelers finished last in the division.
But then you didn't want to steal your take from last year. Recycle your Bud Light cans, please. Because Brinson's recycling his takes.
Another one was going to be the Garrett Bradbury one, offensive MVP, but he used that one a couple years ago. That didn't either.
I just think there's a chance the Steelers fall apart because the offensive line and defensive line.
I think the offensive line is going to be slightly better, which isn't an issue. I think the issue.
Why do you Steelers fans keep saying that?
Because their offensive line was old and sucked last year, and now they're just young and learning. So it might be the same and have a chance to.
I mean, if that's the case, the Steelers are a good bet to win the division.
No, I think Roethlisberger is going to be the concern. He always says he works out in the offseason. He's ready to come back. He'll have 2.5 good games, and then we'll see a lot of last.
He's like me fasting in July.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
I'm really dedicating myself to the 2021 season, getting ready ahead of training camp, and then all of a sudden going like a blackout bender in August.
Right. Much like you, he just cracked open his first Bud Light at 2 p.m.
Yeah. Ben's definitely a Bud Light guy.
And the other part about
he might be a Bud heavy guy.
Yeah. Me?
No, Ben Roethlisberger.
It's not always about you.
Roethlisberger's definitely a Bud heavy guy.
Yeah. Bud heavy.
100%.
Also, not Bud Light, but Anheuser-Busch.
Budweiser. The other part of the AFC North,
because it's the opposite of Bud Light. You see,
is it? Yeah, I know, I got it. I agreed with you that Ben was definitely a Bud heavy guy. The other part of the AFC North is how you feel about the Bengals. So if you think they're going to be better, because you're talking about 3 playoff contenders.
I have one thing to say to you.
3 playoff contenders.
Take off the brawn, be a man.
No one cares about the Bengals, Breech. Go ahead.
3 playoff contenders in the Bengals. So if you think the Bengals can win 6 or 7 or 8 games, then this team's easy. This division's easy second.
Who's better, Bengals or the Steelers?
I mean, they split the series last year.
Then are the Bengals a playoff contender?
The Bengals could have finished with a better your ice cold take is the Steelers going to finish in last. So what are you talking about?
That's my point. That's why I would knock the AFC North down. You're saying that the Bengals could beat the Steelers, but you also call the Steelers a playoff contender. Ergo, the Bengals have to be a playoff contender, or your entire logic is built on fallacies created in your deluded, warped mind that came about strictly because you were forced. Because you were conceived during the Bud Bowl and then forced to watch Joe Montana destroy your father's hopes and dreams and your hopes and dreams as a small child, which is how you ended up on this podcast in the first place.
Ho, ho, ho! Up high, down hard.
I don't know what that was.
When you spin it like that, it sounds depressing.
Prior to that last answer, Breech is basically the politician, and Brinson is the person in the press yelling out questions, and he's just deflecting.
I want the truth.
And finally, you beat it out of him. All right.
If the Ravens max out, if the Browns are at the same level or above, which Vegas thinks they will be, so that's possible. I'm a little.
What do you think? I think the Browns will win the division.
I think Browns can win the division. I think there's a decent chance that the Bengals don't get any better. I think the Bengals should be better. But there's
the Bengals
aren't better.
They won 4 games, tied 1 last year. I think 5 or 6 is right where they're at. I think Breech
not really that much better in year.
I agree, but Breech I think thinks 8 is their max. Is that right, Breech?
But if they win 6, and 6 is the worst team in your division, that means you're not a bad division.
Yeah, no, that's right.
That doesn't mean anything.
No, it does. He's
What if
saying
you
last year.
What if you're like 9-8, 9-8?
Only one team last year
Wow.
had a 6-win team in last place, and that is the number 1 team on our rankings.
And last year, all 3 of the teams ahead of the Bengals won double-digit games, and all 3, as Breech noted, went to the playoffs. So I think it's logical.
Agree to disagree.
Agree to agree that you're wrong.
Agree to agree that I'm wrong. That's fine. I just think that when you look at this division, there's a chance that these teams backslide a little bit, and this number 2 overall ranking will look dumb when you're
one last
Patrick
thing.
Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and potentially Aaron Rodgers.
And so you would have the AFC West at number 2. Is that my understanding, Brinson?
That is correct.
So AFC North All-Stars versus AFC West All-Stars. They play 10 times. What's
AFC West smokes them.
No.
I mean, you can't use every quarterback, so you can't use Justin Herbert in the AFC West.
You don't need to.
You could build a pretty strong defense with the AFC North. I don't know. I don't think the AFC West smokes them.
Okay.
Like, I think, is Lamar your quarterback, or Ben's not. It's either Lamar or Baker, right?
Burrow. I think it's Lamar or Burrow.
Burrow if he's healthy, but Burrow, we don't know about Burrow.
What are you talking
But I do think
about?
it's Lamar. It's Lamar.
It's Lamar. Yes, it's either the guy who played 4 games last year before shattering his leg because he can't stop extending plays, or the guy who once won MVP and passed for 3,000 yards and ran for 1,000 is the only person to do so in a single season. I don't know. Either one or the other. You could pick, I guess.
Well, then John Harbaugh has to be your coach.
Either way, I think it's like 10 games. I think it's probably 5.2 to 4.8.
Okay. You guys are higher on the division than I am. That's because you're a homer.
That's because
See,
there's nothing wrong with being a homer, Brinson.
All right, the number 1 division. I agree with this one, actually.
The number 1 division, if you've been listening the whole time, God bless you, first of all.
Attention, you may know.
Process of elimination, it is the NFC West. And I think this one is pretty simple. I think it's the one division where it conceivably feels like all 4 teams can make the playoffs. I don't think you can really say that. Obviously, you can say all 4 teams in any division can make the playoffs, but this is the one where you would feel comfortable putting money down on any one of these teams and thinking they could make the postseason. It wouldn't be surprising at all if all of them finish 500 or better, which almost happened last year, except the 49ers, the bottom fell out. Everyone got injured and they finished 6-10. But other than that, everybody finished 8 wins or more. Rams with 10, Seahawks 12-4. And again, now that you have 7 playoff spots in each conference, you can conceivably have a division send all 4 of its teams. And I think if there's any chance of that happening for the first time ever, it would be with the NFC West.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, it's hard to argue. I think we give Kyle Shanahan the benefit of the doubt time and time again, even though, as you pointed out, Breech struggled down the stretch, but that's because of so many injuries. I have lost 0 faith in Kyle Shanahan's ability to win football games. I think the biggest question here is Arizona and just where Kyler Murray's at and his progression, and Cliff Kingsbury, because Kingsbury's not in the conversation with Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan. Pete Carroll's, he's almost 70 years old, and he's sort of a defensive coach who's, he's not an offensive wizard, if you will, but he has Russell Wilson, so that certainly helps. So I think the big question is Arizona, but I do think they're going to get better, and they went 8-8 last year. So I suppose one of these teams could fall off the cliff. I don't know how it could be the Rams with Matthew Stafford, who are the favorites for Brinson, and I think I like them to win the division as well over the Seahawks.
Well, honestly, I don't know what to do with the Rams and the 49ers because my Matthew Stafford loves knows very few bounds, but golly, the 49ers look like a team that could just win it all.
Why? Who's the quarterback?
Jimmy G, and then you give Trey Lance the rock maybe quarter way into the season. If Jimmy G stinks, if Jimmy G's good and he holds off Trey Lance,
we just talked about the dire quarterback situations for the Saints, for the Jets, for the Patriots, and now all of a sudden it's fine for Trey Lance to come in, who hasn't played football in 600 days, and go to the Super Bowl.
I didn't mention the Jets' dire quarterback situation.
You mentioned the Patriots, and you mentioned the other team I just mentioned. Who else?
Saints.
The Saints, yeah.
I think the Cam Newton, Mac Jones thing is a question.
My point is that
Jimmy G it's been to a Super Bowl. I guess Cam Newton has too, technically, but
yeah. Who would knowing what we know right now, which isn't much, but based on starting the team tomorrow, would you rather have Cam Newton start or Jimmy Garoppolo start,
or Jameis Winston?
I would rather have Jimmy G start this season than Cam Newton?
I don't know.
Or Jameis too.
See, I'm not convinced. Jimmy G might be third on that list for me because if Cam is healthy and he's a year further along in the system in New England, I'm not sure that he's worse than Jimmy G. My point is that I don't know if we should just poo-poo the quarterback situation in San Francisco is not being a concern. Nothing.
It's fair. I mean, look, I like both the Rams and the 49ers in this division. And I think the Cardinals,
the Seahawks are third.
I think the Seahawks and the Cardinals are potentially in a dogfight. We need to see what
you must hate Russell Wilson. That's weird. That's a weird take for you.
Russell Wilson.
Why are you hating on Russell? He's in Venice, Italy. The man's not even in the country to defend himself. He's been on the podcast before, and you're sitting here hating on him, Brinson.
You got a new offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron, who comes to the Rams. I want to see how that works out. The 49ers are losing coaches too. And the Cardinals, they had JJ Watt, they had AJ Green, like the big splashy signings, but are they going to work out and make their team that much better? I think there are question marks around those two teams, but I wouldn't be surprised if any one of those four teams won the division.
I would.
I think this is clearly the best division in football. I thought that coming into last year.
You wouldn't be surprised if the Cardinals won the division?
Cardinals aren't winning the division.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah,
I'm not going to pick it this year like an idiot, but
you would be surprised.
I would not be surprised. I would be surprised. Okay, I'll give that.
Yeah, actually, Breech, I think this list is pretty good. The only question I had was the AFC North maybe being a little too high, but you made a good case. Otherwise, have you gotten any feedback, people yelling at you on Twitter? Because that's typically the barometer of whether you got it right or not.
Or on Instagram.
Yeah.
You know what, though? I feel like everybody agrees with the NFC West at number one, and that's where most people have their issues. Like, oh, this couldn't be the top-ranked team. And the NFC East people know their team was so bad last year that they regularly tweeted that their division was garbage, so they don't really have anything to argue about. So it was really the middle, and people don't get too sensitive about, oh, you ranked to be fifth instead of fourth. So it's
unless you're making mock drafts, in which case they want you fired.
Exactly. Thank God I don't make mock drafts.
I wonder who does the NBA mock drafts. I wonder if they get the sort of pushback that
no. No. Mainly because there's not the same industrial complex. They got a ton of it, I think. Debo, you might know better than I would, but I think the NFL mock draft, the NFL season ends early February. The draft isn't until March.
You have a lot of time to build.
There's usually like a month period, and you got to wait for the lottery, which they've already done now. But I think there's a lot less teams who are on the back end of the NBA draft are like, whatever, dude.
And you don't have time to get angry. No one cares about second round picks. I don't think they do anymore. They didn't.
I think Nico, the reigning MVP, was a second round pick, but you are correct. Generally speaking, teams in the NBA don't care as much about second round picks. I think the interest has gotten deeper in terms of how the draft goes for NFL teams, whereas for NBA teams, maybe it's just really the first 10 picks. You're like, how dare you have Cade Cunningham over Scotty Barnes or reverse.
Whereas, as a Sixers fan, do you care about second round picks that the Sixers are making?
No, I mean, I went through an era where the draft and the lottery was everything because they were picking at the top of the draft each year. But now that they're a little bit better and picking 28, it doesn't really move the needle for me. But that's what teams, in January in the NBA, if you're a really bad team, you start looking forward to the draft. But if you're a good team, like Brinson said, there's a 1 week gap, if that, between Game 7 of the finals and the NBA draft, where you have 3.5, 4 full months between NFL, their end of the Super Bowl, I guess 2.5 months between that and the draft.
Maybe I'm going to petition Roger Goodell to move the draft to February 28th.
You would hate life. You'd go straight from covering the Super Bowl to putting out mock draft. You wouldn't even cover the Super Bowl because you'd be too busy during draft season.
That's the other issue. You have to worry about 300 something players as opposed to 50 players maybe for the NBA. All right. Fair enough.
Okay. All right. That's the show. That's it. Great stuff for a Friday. Cracking them Bud Lights early. Responsibly, of course. Crack your Bud Lights early, but crack them responsibly.
What's happening on
Monday for a Mailbag Monday.
Mailbag.
Great weekend.